Extreme poverty. Playing life on nightmare mode. Imagine you're playing a video game for the first time with no tutorial, no starting equipment, and someone cranked the difficulty to impossible while blindfolding you. That's extreme poverty. You're living on less than $2.15 per day, which is literally less than what most people spend on their morning coffee. You can't even stretch that last dollar in your pocket to buy a decent meal because that dollar doesn't exist. Being under the extreme poverty line doesn't just mean you're short on cash. It means basic human needs like food, clean water, shelter, and healthcare become luxury items that you can only dream about. Think about your average morning routine. You wake up, grab breakfast from the fridge, turn on the tap for clean water, maybe check your phone for messages. If you're in extreme poverty, each of these simple actions becomes a major challenge or completely impossible. The food you can afford is minimal and lacks the nutrition needed to keep you healthy. You're practically immune to waterborne diseases because you've been drinking contaminated water for so long. But if you do get sick, healthcare isn't in your vocabulary because a doctor's visit costs more than you make in a month. You're basically stuck in permanent survival mode, making extreme poverty an uphill race against time where the finish line keeps moving further away. It's like being trapped at the bottom of a well with no ladder, no rope, and people at the top occasionally dropping pennies while telling you to work harder. Regular poverty, the Monopoly game from hell. Regular poverty is like trying to win a game of Monopoly when you start with no money, no properties, and every time you pass go, you get a bill instead of $200. You're constantly juggling insufficient resources while struggling to meet basic needs like food, housing, healthcare, and education. Imagine having to choose between paying for dinner or keeping the lights on. That's not a hypothetical scenario. That's Tuesday. In practical terms, poverty means living on an income below a certain threshold. But that threshold is like a moving target depending on where you live. You might be considered poor making $30,000 a day in America, but you'd be living like royalty with that money in some other countries. The point is, being poor means it's a daily struggle just to put food on the table and find ways to pay your bills without having to sell your kidney on the black market. But poverty isn't just about not having enough dollars in your bank account. It's about getting stuck in a cycle where you can't access the things that could help you escape. Want higher education? That costs money you don't have. Need better transportation to get a better job? That requires money you're using to survive. There's also relative poverty, where you might have enough money to survive, but you can't participate in normal social activities because your income is too low. Imagine having enough money for school and food, but not enough to buy a smartphone. So while your friends are sharing memes, you're still playing Snake on a Nokia from 2003. Lower middle class, the financial tightrope walkers. Picture the lower middle class as people who successfully escaped the poverty quicksand, but are now walking a financial tightrope without a safety net. You're comfortably above the poverty line, but not quite capable of installing that backyard pool you've been dreaming about since you were 12. If you're in this class, you're living in a decent neighborhood, maybe in a modest home or apartment that doesn't require you to share a bathroom with strangers. Your car is probably a reliable Toyota or Honda, not exactly a luxury vehicle, but it gets you from point A to point B without breaking down every other Tuesday. You've got a stable job, maybe in administration, teaching, or skilled trades, bringing in enough to cover the basics like food, housing, and utilities without having to choose between eating and having electricity. But you're not in a position where you can go on shopping sprees every time your paycheck arrives. Many people in this class are experts at what gamers call min-maxing, making the most optimal choices with limited resources. You can save for your kids' college fund and handle unexpected emergencies, but buying that new iPhone every year would throw your entire budget into chaos. It's the financial equivalent of saying, "I'm fine, everything's under control," while secretly eating ramen noodles for the third time this week because you splurged on groceries that weren't on sale. Middle class, the Goldilocks zone. If you were to rate social classes on a scale from 1 to 10, the middle class would be a solid 5. They're what the kids call mid, the Goldilocks of financial status. Not too poor, not too rich, but just right in that comfortable sweet spot where you're not panicking about bills, but you're also not swimming in cash. Being middle class varies depending on where you live and your country's economy, but it's generally about earning enough to cover basic needs like housing, healthcare, and education, with a little left over for life's small pleasures like vacations, dining out, or upgrading your smartphone without feeling guilty about it. Think of it as having enough money to buy a new phone every 2 years instead of using the same one until it literally falls apart in your hands. You can afford to eat at restaurants occasionally without checking your bank balance first, but you're not exactly throwing money around like confetti. If you're middle class, you probably have a stable job, teacher, nurse, office worker, or similar, that's more secure than lower income jobs, but doesn't come with the financial freedom to retire at 35 and travel the world in a private jet. You can take some risks, like starting a small business or changing careers, but you can't afford to fail spectacularly because that would send you tumbling back down to instant ramen territory. It's a comfortable space where you're not stressed about every expense, but you're still aware that overspending could land you back in financial trouble. Upper middle class, premium economy. Being upper middle class is like flying premium economy. You're not cramped in the regular seats with crying babies and questionable airplane food, but you're also not in first class sipping champagne and getting foot massages. You're in that sweet spot with extra legroom and better snacks. This group has figured out the money game pretty well. You've got a stable, well-paying job. Maybe you're a senior manager, specialized professional, or successful business owner. You can afford to live in a nice neighborhood where the schools are good and you don't have to worry about your car getting stolen every night. Education was probably your golden ticket to this level because you wouldn't be here without those straight A's and that degree from a decent university. You follow some lifestyle patterns of the wealthy: premium gym membership, golf at exclusive country clubs, vacations that don't involve camping in a tent. But you're not flying in private jets or buying cars that cost more than houses. You're scratching the surface of what it means to be truly wealthy, but you're not quite there yet. It's like being able to see the VIP section of life, but still needing to buy tickets to get in. The upper middle class gets to enjoy many luxuries without going completely overboard. You drink good wine, but you still check for sales at the grocery store. You can afford nice things, but you're not so rich that money becomes meaningless. Affluent, the comfort zone. Champions. When someone calls themselves affluent, picture a sunlit room with comfortable furniture, fine art on the walls, and maybe a grand piano that someone actually knows how to play. This is the lifestyle of people who have more than enough money to live comfortably while enjoying life's finer pleasures. Being affluent isn't just about having a big bank account, though that's definitely part of it. It's about reaching that magical point where having enough money meets having a genuinely good lifestyle. You own a beautiful home in an excellent neighborhood, take regular vacations to places that require passports, and dine at restaurants where the waitstaff knows your name and your usual order. You can invest in things like art, high-end technology, or a second property without having to dip into your emergency fund or sell a kidney. Your wealth gives you choices and flexibility that most people can only dream about, even though you won't find your name on any richest people lists anytime soon. Being affluent means having excellent financial management skills, often with investments and savings that grow over time like a well-tended garden. You have access to high-quality education and healthcare, contributing to a comfortable and secure lifestyle that feels sustainable. It's essentially having a financial cushion so comfortable you could use it as a mattress. You're not swimming in gold coins like Scrooge McDuck, but you're floating comfortably in a pool of financial security where the water is always the perfect temperature. Upper affluent, luxury mattress territory. Imagine you've graduated from having a financial cushion to sleeping on a luxury mattress made of smaller financial cushions. That's upper affluent. You've moved past basic financial comfort into a realm where terms like financial stress sound like foreign languages you studied but never really learned. Your income is significantly higher than average, allowing you to afford much more than just the essentials. We're talking about upscale vacations to places most people only see in travel magazines, high-end cars that purr like contented cats, and maybe even a second or third property because apparently one house isn't enough anymore. But it's not just about the big purchases. This level of wealth means you can invest in experiences that enrich your life, gourmet dining where each meal is a work of art, exclusive events where you rub shoulders with interesting people, and high-quality leisure activities that most people consider once-in-a-lifetime experiences. You probably have a financial advisor because your money situation is complex enough that you need someone whose job is literally just managing your wealth. It's like having a personal trainer, but for your bank account. Socially, being upper affluent often places you in circles with other high earners where conversations revolve around investments, luxury brands, and philanthropy. You're not just surviving or even thriving, you're actively enjoying the finer things while planning for an even finer future. Millionaire, seven-figure club member. Congratulations, you've hit the seven-figure mark. Being a millionaire means your net worth, all your assets minus liabilities, equals at least $1 million. Think of it as having a giant piggy bank that, when smashed, would contain enough money to buy a really nice house or a whole lot of really nice cars. In practical terms, this could mean owning a valuable home, having smart investments in stocks or real estate, and maybe even owning a yacht if you're feeling particularly nautical. You can live comfortably without worrying about the price of everyday things, and you might splurge on luxuries like expensive vacations or the latest gadgets without checking your bank balance first. Being a millionaire gives you a solid financial position that allows for a comfortable lifestyle and real financial security. You can probably afford to send your kids to good colleges without them drowning in debt, retire early if you want, or start that business you've been dreaming about since you were working in a cubicle. But here's the thing. Being a millionaire doesn't necessarily mean you're swimming in cash like a dolphin in an ocean of money. Depending on where you live, that million might not stretch as far as you'd think. In places like New York City or San Francisco, you might spend more on parking than some people spend on rent. Still, overall, being a millionaire means you've got a substantial financial cushion and the flexibility to enjoy life's perks without sweating the small stuff. You've basically unlocked the comfortable life achievement in the game of capitalism. Multi-millionaire, the wealth evolution. You've leveled up from regular millionaire to multi-millionaire, like a Pokemon evolution but with more zeros in your bank account. Your net worth isn't just 1 million, it's multiple millions, possibly reaching 8 or even 9 figures where you're worth hundreds of millions. At this point, you're not just wealthy, you're stupid rich. You have so many millions that even your calculator starts sweating when it tries to display your net worth. This kind of money typically comes from building a successful business empire, making incredibly smart investments, inheriting a fortune, or discovering a literal money tree in your backyard. Multi-millionaires enjoy lifestyles that include multiple luxury homes around the world, collections of high-performance cars that cost more than most people's houses, and art collections that museums would kill for. Your investment portfolio reads like a shopping list for someone who's trying to buy pieces of the entire economy. At this stage, you make decisions based on passion and interest rather than necessity. You're like that YouTuber who decided to become a professional wrestler, not because he needed the money, but because he was bored and wanted to try something new. But here's an interesting twist. Being a multimillionaire doesn't necessarily mean you have millions of dollars in cash sitting around. You could literally have no money in your wallet, but still be worth hundreds of millions because of your assets. It's like being house rich, but pocket poor, except your house is actually 17 houses and a small business empire. Billionaire, the ultimate financial boss level. If millionaires are playing the game of wealth on hard mode, billionaires are the final boss. They've basically broken the game's economy and are now playing with cheat codes enabled. $1 billion is 1,000 million, which sounds simple until you realize that's more money than most people could spend in multiple lifetimes. To put this in perspective, if you spent $1,000 every single day, which is more than most people's monthly budget, it would take you nearly 3,000 years to spend $1 billion. These people have more money than small countries' entire economies and more financial power than some governments. With billions of dollars, you could buy private islands, fleets of yachts, or even small countries if you're feeling particularly ambitious. But billionaires often think bigger than personal luxury. They invest in businesses, technology, and sometimes literally rocket ships because apparently Earth isn't exciting enough anymore. They might be behind the next big technological innovation, funding research that could change the world, or building companies that employ thousands of people. That smartphone you're probably watching this on? It exists partly because billionaires invested millions in the technology that made it possible. But with great wealth comes great scrutiny. Billionaires often face public pressure about how they should spend their money, with people constantly suggesting they could solve world hunger or fund entire countries' education systems. It's like being really good at a video game and having everyone tell you how you should play it. Still, despite the pressure and responsibility, being a billionaire means you've essentially won capitalism. You have more financial freedom than 99.99% of humans who have ever existed, which probably beats having to worry about whether you can afford groceries this week. The conclusion: the wealth ladder explained. So there you have it. Every level of wealth explained, from extreme poverty, where you're fighting for survival, all the way up to billionaire status, where you're basically playing life on creative mode with unlimited resources. The fascinating thing about this wealth ladder is that each level feels normal to the people living it. Someone in extreme poverty dreams of having enough food for tomorrow. Someone in the middle class dreams of not worrying about money. Someone who's affluent dreams of being truly wealthy. And billionaires? They probably dream of having even more billions, because apparently there's no amount of money that makes people think, okay, this is enough. What's really interesting is how each level changes your relationship with money itself. In poverty, money is survival. In the middle class, money is security. For the wealthy, money becomes a tool for freedom and influence. And for billionaires, money becomes almost abstract. It's not about buying things anymore, it's about buying possibilities. The crazy part is that despite all these different levels, everyone still wants basically the same things: security, happiness, respect, and the feeling that they've succeeded at this weird game we call life. They just define success with different numbers of zeros. Whether you're currently eating ramen noodles or caviar, remember that wealth is relative. Happiness doesn't always come with a price tag, and somewhere out there, someone richer than you is probably watching YouTube videos about money while sitting on a golden toilet, wondering if they're truly happy. And hey, if you made it through this entire explanation, you're already rich in knowledge about wealth, which is worth at least, well, actually, it's worth exactly nothing in terms of dollars, but it might help you climb that wealth ladder someday. Or at least understand which rung you're currently standing on while you figure out your next move in the most expensive game ever invented.